Good morning. I'm recording this lecture. This is a presentation I made to the teaching forum at NKU in February 2017. So my topic is student passive note taking and how I theme it. So I stumbled upon some of these solutions over time and I'd like to share them with you today. So the problem is passive note taking, and actually there are two problems here. One is the idea of passive, which is its own problem, but the second problem is the taking. And actually, passive note taking is not really a problem. I mean, note taking is not really a problem. Here is why. Several years ago, I got these CDs, or they used to be CDs, I believe. From the great teaching company on all the philosophers and economists. And I used to listen to them, not in the car, but actually at my house. And I would listen to them and take notes. I would take copious notes. So obviously note taking is not bad. Because if there is a lecture going on, then I have to take notes, right? But the problem is the passive note copying. And it is passive note copying that our students actually end up doing by a ton load, and I thought we should want to reduce it. So here is what I tried. I'm going to talk to you about my 5 rules. It's fun to make your own rules once in a while. So let's see how it goes. So the problem one is that the publisher gives us the PowerPoint which have like tons of text on it. So here is an example from my marketing principles class. And so if you look at the PowerPoint that the publisher provides, here is a quick look at the PowerPoint from the publisher. So I'll just scroll it down. Let's see, this way. So chapter objectives are there, and then they summarize the options that are given in the book for one of the cases, and then they begin to talk about the product concept. There are all these words, not too bad, but still quite a few. And this diagram is, of course, kind of needed, so I can keep it. Here is more text. Here is some more definitions, examples, everything. And this is a good diagram. Then some more diagrams. Then we got concepts defined and words, and then this, and then let's move on. Let's move on and keep on doing, keep on going, keep on going, keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. So this is the text. Okay. In 1 hour lecture, all that the students will be doing is copying and copying and copying. So here is how I try to solve this problem. So remember, this is one of the slides. No, sorry, this is about 8 slides or maybe 6 for this particular subtopic in the chapter. This is the original. All I do is basically I just pull that diagram and have nothing else, no other slide. Why can't I just have this diagram and talk about these? I can talk about what these are and give them the example of one each or whatever. But I don't have to have that 7 slide text. Okay, I just explain each one orally and tell them what it is and cite the page number in the text. Here is another example from the original slide, and these 3 types of definitions of these 3 types of innovations are being described, defined, written in sentences, and students can read it or they write it. Even if they read it, that's a lot of time wasted actually. And they can read the same thing in the textbook. I don't know why they have to read it again here. So this is what I do. I simply have them just the name and then the examples, 3 examples. We don't have to get into the details of these 3 examples at this time. And so this is basically my solution. My presentation is going to be very trite, very trivial issues. Some point in time I hope we can raise it to a little bit more profound level. Alright, so let's go on. So my guide to myself is a PowerPoint does not have to accept text from the book. The book is already there. We just are making, they don't want to read the book anyway, and we are helping them not want to read the book. So I don't know why the publisher PowerPoints are cluttered like crazy, and they just copy everything from the textbook. Okay, so this is my guide to myself. I don't everybody doesn't have to follow it. And so my rule number one for myself is lean it like crazy. So again, let's go back to this particular slide. And why do I even need the examples words? Because words they will write, and then when they write the word, they just write it literally. They will copy, I mean. Now let them write if they want to. At least it will require some thinking. So my rule number two is all text, even lean text, are work for students, and it's uninteresting. And so my rule number two for myself is embellish lean text with pictures. That makes it much more interesting, and also makes them write rather than copy. Now here is the new product development process, and originally this was 14 slides with tons of words. So I just took the diagram like I did in one of the previous for one of the previous topics, and now I would just explain this each step, and I would of course take a product like here is a product, new wash shampoo, and because it's a new product I thought that would be interesting to students. Tell you what, not at all. It's not interesting at all. So then I thought of this brand called X, and X of course is something that college students are familiar with, and it kind of begins to engage them. They become a little interested. But actually for me even this did not do the trick. So then I thought of this new product, another one. This is called Hug shirt, like you hug somebody. So these are two people far apart. They could be, one could be in Australia, another one in America, and they would wear the shirt, and they would be able to send each other a hug. So you would feel like you're getting the hug from the other person. Okay, the product really does exist, although not in this particular application hasn't found a commercial use yet. But the based on this technology, basically it's a wearable technology, which will have a lot of products in the market in coming few years. But the moment I present this Hug shirt, then now I got students listening. They suddenly perk up and they begin to take interest. And I can run through this entire exercise, each step in the context of this particular shirt, and they would follow, they'll pay attention, and I don't have to write a single word, and they can write what they like. It doesn't matter to me how many pages they write, but they are the ones doing the writing. And so my guide is bad illustration can still lose students. A boring example is not much better than a no example at all. So my rule number three is choose an example that's inherently attention arresting in itself. Moving on, here is another example. Now I already have a lean text. This is about branding. Why brand? What does branding do for consumers? What does branding do for the marketer? But this is before. I'm not happy even with this one, even though this is lean text. So this is what I end up doing. What does branding do for consumers, for marketers? So to me, each extra word on the transparency is actually a distraction, and it just unnecessarily adds to the student load. So, and of course I can do this, for example, for X. And actually when I did this, the answers I got were amazing. One of the answers I got from students was amazing. They mentioned, of course, like branding is a means of identifying. We can talk about a brand, we can name it, we can call it by name. But one of the answers was it is transformative for the student. Think about it. I mean, even I wouldn't have thought about it. So when you remove the distraction, sometimes the quality of participation that students are able to exhibit is actually very, very delightful in our role as a professor. So this is then my rule number, my guide. Bullet points make discussions more natural. Sentences don't. And this is a corollary of the rule number one, actually. Cut out words ruthlessly. Be absolutely ruthless in cutting out the words from PowerPoint. I'm just talking to myself. I'm not saying you should do that, but my instruction to myself is I should cut out the words ruthlessly on a PowerPoint. Okay, here is one more example. There will be actually two more, so please stay with me. Here we are. Now this is not principles anymore. This is my consumer behavior class. Here is, and this PowerPoint is very lean already. A personality trait, we are talking about personality traits. A personality trait is a characteristic behavior. How many traits are there? Oh, well, actually thousands. So psychologists came up with classification scheme because nobody can deal with thousands of traits. One example is the adverse personality preference schedule, which is in table 5.3. Now, what I'm saying to myself is, even this is not satisfactory enough for me, and here is why. You see, the point is that when how they would write down how many traits, is that going to be on the exam? Actually thousands, is that going to be on the exam? How does writing it down help? But they would write it down. You draw a line and they'll draw a line on the notebook. You write a word, they will write a word. So that's very important. So here is what I do. I call them connectors. And so the connectors are just rhetorical. It's my segue of getting from one point to point two, right? So I told them that I would write such connectors in green ink in a white box and draw a red line across it, which means that they understand right away that these are just rhetorical questions. They're not going to help them on the exam. And tell them this is not going to help you on the exam, and I guarantee they will not write it down. They will not copy it. And that, of course, is my intention, right? And so this is what I end up doing now. Fewer words on the slide. And so here is my guide for myself. Connectors are not substantive concepts. Don't make students write them. My rule number 4 is write out connectors as a sidebar and cross it out. Now this example requires some staying with me, please. We are now teaching them how do we market by psychographics. So these are the 7 steps, and I won't read all the sentences because I'll get an opportunity to read them in a much simpler form. But these are the 7. Visualize the consumers of your product brand in terms of psychographics. Okay. Notice here itself there are about 10 words. Then name some psychographic factors that will apply to your target consumers. Again another 10 words. This is how I solve it. Before I solve the problem, this is what I do. First I space it out so that psychologically, cognitively, it's less workload on the consumer. It looks on the student. It looks less intimidating. Okay, so I space it out, and then this is how I trim it. Remember, there were 10 words in the first point and 10 words in the second point. Why do I need all those words? It's simple. Visualize consumer psychographics, name psychographic factors, and then whatever I needed to say, like visualize consumer psychographics in terms of blah blah blah, I can say it and they can write it out if they want to, right? Now, notice how simple it becomes for them to write and for us to understand, even if you're looking at it for the first time. So the 7 points are: visualize consumer psychographics. We know our consumers. We visualize them in terms of demographics. Let's visualize them in terms of psychographics. They've already, by the way, done the chapter on psychographics, the concept, so they know what psychographics is. Okay. Then when I visualize my consumer psychographics, I talk about them in terms of psychographic factors, specific factors like outgoing, like community minded. And then of course I would design a survey to measure these psychographic factors. Then I'll collect the data, and my data will then give me the psychographic profile of all of the consumers. And then I'll be able to identify segment. And then of course I have to select segments that I want to target, prepare a marketing mix by each segment, prepare a marketing plan. Okay, this is how I have reduced the number of words to write, but not the number of words that I would say in order to explain it to them. But even this is problematic to me. Why? Because it's a list of 7. I break it down into just by a simple arrow. I make it cognitively less taxing, and also it explains understanding, because the first 3 are basically pre-planning, so to speak, or doing research, whereas the next 4 are probably, they get me more into the actual practical marketing that I have to do. So this is just another way of simplifying. But I go further. When I think about it conceptually, all these 7 steps actually break down into the 3 steps. I have to visualize consumer psychographics and name psychographic factors. That's thinking. I'm thinking about it. Then I design a survey and do psychographic profiles by collecting data, analyzing. That's the research part. and then I do. Now I'm back as first I'm there as a thinker, then I'm there as a researcher, and now I'm there as a practical marketing action manager. I select which segments to target. I prepare a marketing mix. I prepare a marketing plan. I give them a heading. So now my three major things I have to do when I want to target my consumers by psychographics. I have to do ideation, I have to do research, I have to do plan action. Now these, remember, I have been able to reorganize the 7 points into 3: ideation, research, plan, action. I can drill this down into their heads: ideation, research, plan, action, ideation, research, plan, action. And then of course I can explain ideation has 2 steps, like you have to first visualize your consumers and then think about those consumers in psychographic factor terms. Then you have to design a survey, then analyze the data and come up with psychographic profiles. And then as a manager, you choose which segments to target, prepare the marketing mix, and implement prepare a marketing plan. So this is my issue. My problem is, or my belief is, that a long list, any list that's more than 5, is a tyranny on the student mind. Okay, so give your list. My rule is give your list a new life with 5 max. I believe, it's my personal belief, that any list that's longer than 5 is difficult for people to carry in their heads. And if I can't carry a list in my head, it's really virtually useless. Also, all lists that are more than 5 are simply laundry lists. They are unsystematic, they're unnecessarily detailed out, conceptually misorganized or ill-organized lists. I believe that conceptually every list can be reduced to 5. Now that of course is a substantial argument for a conceptual journal paper somewhere, or maybe at least a blog. My guideline for preparing PowerPoint for students is not to, without engaging into any the rhetorical or theoretical argument, just to say let's try to reduce all lists, no matter how long they are, to no more than 5. That's my rule for myself. And so finally, this is a list of the rules, 5 rules. Lean it like crazy. Embellish lean text with pictures or visuals. Choose inherently attention-arresting examples. Write out connectors as sidebars crossed out so students don't copy them. And then give your list a new life with 5 maximum. Thank you. So again, just to summarize this was an issue about passive note taking, and the problem was not taking but note copying. And I believe that by using these 5 rules, and I've kind of finalized them only this semester, little by little, in an informal, unorganized fashion. I have been trying these little by little, but only this semester I have finalized it, and I think I'm much better having done that, and I think my students are much better. Not only it gives them an opportunity to think what they want to write, but it's also less load. I would say the tons and tons of words that are on the PowerPoint and the students have to write, it's actually an abuse. It's a torture on the student, and so it's student friendly in my sense, and I hope it works out for me. I'm gonna keep trying next semester and so on. And I was thank you for giving me this opportunity of sharing my ideas on how we can tame students' passive note copying habit. Thank you.